The night air hung heavy over Edo, thick with the scent of rain yet to fall. Lanterns flickered along the narrow streets, casting wavering pools of light that barely penetrated the creeping shadows. Takeda Ryunosuke stood silently on the wooden porch of a modest tea house, his sharp eyes scanning the dim outlines of the city beyond. Beside him, Kenta Moriyama adjusted the strap of his armor, his broad shoulders tense beneath the worn fabric. "The information Aiko uncovered is our only lead," Ryunosuke murmured, his voice low but resolute. "If the conspiracy is to be stopped, we must understand its full scope." Kenta nodded, his usual bluntness softened by the weight of their task. "The fewer mistakes we make, the better. But with the shadows that crawl this city, mistakes could cost us everything." The two men had spent the last hour piecing together fragments of whispered rumors and coded messages, all pointing to a secret meeting among the shogunate's highest conspirators. It was Aiko Hanami, ever resourceful and daring, who had slipped into the inner circles to uncover the critical details. Now, her discovery demanded action. Meanwhile, in a secluded alley near the noble district, Aiko moved with the grace of a cat, her slender form cloaked in a plain kimono that belied her sharp mind and sharper instincts. She had navigated the treacherous social labyrinth of Edo's elite with practiced ease, blending charm with subtlety to extract secrets hidden beneath layers of politeness and deception. That evening, under the veil of darkness, Aiko had followed a trail of hushed conversations and guarded glances to a secluded estate. Concealed behind sliding shoji doors, she overheard the low murmur of voices, a council of men plotting the shogunate's fall. Their words were careful, each syllable dripping with ambition and betrayal. "Lord Matsuda's vision will reshape this land," one voice declared, cold and unwavering. "The old order will crumble, and from its ashes a new empire shall rise." Ico's breath caught. The stakes were far greater than she had imagined. Returning to Ryunosuke and Kenta, she recounted the meeting's location and timing, her eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and determination. They gathered beneath the eastern hills, in a manner shielded by loyal guards. "If we strike now, we might unmask the full extent of their treachery." Ryunosuke's gaze hardened. "We move at dawn. Stealth and caution will be our allies. We cannot afford to be discovered, not yet." The hours that followed were filled with preparation, sharpening blades, reviewing plans, and steeling minds for the peril ahead. Ryunosuke wrestled with the weight of his duty and the ever-present shadow of his past failures. The samurai code demanded honor and courage, yet the path before him was riddled with deception and bloodshed. At the first light, the two Ronin slipped through Edo's awakening streets, their movements silent as falling leaves. The manor loomed ahead, its walls a fortress of stone and timber. Guards patrolled the perimeter, their eyes sharp, senses alert to any threat. With Kenta covering his flank, Ryunosuke scaled the outer wall, landing softly in the shadowed garden below. The night's chill bit at his skin, but his resolve burned hotter than any flame. Inside the manor, the flicker of candlelight betrayed the conspirators gathered in secrecy. Listening from behind a sliding screen, Ryunosuke caught fragments of their dire plans, assassinations, uprisings, and the overthrow of the shogunate itself. The scent of sandalwood incense mingled with the tension in the air, each whispered word a thread in the tangled web of betrayal. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked beneath Kenta's foot. Eyes turned sharply toward their hiding place. Instinct took over. Swords flashed in the dim light as the confrontation erupted. The clash was swift and brutal. Ryunosuke's blade sang its deadly song, each strike precise and controlled, while Kenta's raw strength kept enemies at bay. Despite their skill, the odds were overwhelming, and the risk of discovery grew with every passing second. Retreating into the maze of corridors, they escaped just as reinforcements arrived, hearts pounding with the knowledge of what they had learned. Back in the safety of the tea house, silence hung heavy. Isio's voice broke the quiet. "We know their plans now, but the danger is greater than ever. We must act carefully if we hope to protect the shogunate and those we love." Ryanosuke's eyes reflected the dawn's pale light. "Honor demands we stand against this darkness, even if the path is fraught with peril. Tomorrow the shadows deepened, but so does our resolve." As the city stirred awake, the Ronin and his allies prepared for the trials ahead, bound by duty, honor, and the fragile hope of justice in a world cloaked in secrets and lies. The flickering light of the lanterns cast long shadows across the worn wooden floor of the tea house, where Takeda Ryunosuke sat in silence, his sharp eyes fixed on the folded letter before him. The room was thick with the scent of tobacco and the faint aroma of cold tea, mingling with the weight of unspoken truths. Across from him, Kenta Moriyama shifted uneasily, his broad shoulders tense, sensing the storm gathering in his friend's gaze. Ryanosuke's voice, usually calm and measured, was low but edged with steel. "This was hidden in the satchel of the messenger we intercepted yesterday. The seal is authentic, the handwriting unmistakable. It implicates one of our own." Kenta's jaw tightened. "You don't mean—" Before Ryunosuke could answer, the tea-house door slid open with a soft creak. Aiko Hanami stepped inside, her delicate frame silhouetted against the dim streetlight. Her eyes, sharp and alert, flicked between the two men. "We have a problem," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryunosuke gestured to the letter. "The threads of this conspiracy are twisted deeper than we feared. Someone close to us has betrayed our cause." Isio's face paled. "I overheard Ishikawa Taro speaking with his men last night. They mentioned a leak inside our circled its hole, those someone with our knowledge could provide." The room seemed to close in around them, the burden of betrayal pressing heavy on their shoulders. Ryanosuke's mind raced, sifting through every encounter, every conversation, searching for the fracture in their trust. Later that evening, beneath the relentless downpour that drenched Edo's narrow streets, Ryunosuke and Kenta stood side by side atop a hill overlooking the city. The rain masked their whispered conversation, mingling with the distant murmur of the restless city. "We cannot afford to let doubt consume us," Kenta said, voice rough but resolute. "But we must be vigilant. The enemy wears a familiar face." Ryunosuke nodded, his gaze hardening. "Honor demands we face this betrayal head-on. There is no room for hesitation." Meanwhile, in the shadowed labyrinth of Edo's corridors, Aiko moved like a wraith. Her footsteps were silent, her breath steady despite the danger lurking around every corner. The recent ambush had rattled her, but her resolve remained unbroken. The soft clatter of hurried footsteps behind her signaled pursuit, and she slipped into a narrow alcove, holding her breath as the enemy's search party passed by. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. She knew the stakes had never been higher. Every secret uncovered, every risk taken, brought them closer to unraveling Lord Matsuda's plot, but also closer to ruin. As dawn crept over the horizon, Ryunosuke found himself alone on a rooftop, the city's lanterns flickering like distant stars beneath him. The cool morning air was sharp against his skin, carrying the scent of rain-soaked earth and the distant cries of awakening birds. In this solitude, the weight of betrayal settled heavily in his chest. Yet, beneath the storm of doubt and loss, A fierce determination burned a resolve to see justice done, no matter the cost. The empire of shadows might conceal many faces, but Rhinosuk's sword would cut through the darkness. The path ahead was fraught with peril, but retreat was no longer an option. As the first light painted the sky in hues of amber and rose, Ryunosuke sheathed his katana and turned away from the edge. The game had changed. Allies were scarce, enemies abundant, and the sting of betrayal would only sharpen his blade. The knight's revelations marked a turning point, not just in their struggle against the conspiracy, but in the very heart of a Ronin whose honor was both his shield and his burden. With the city stirring beneath him, Ryunosuke stepped forward into the dawn, ready to face the shadows yet to come. The tea house was cloaked in a haze of incense smoke, its faint aroma weaving through the low murmur of voices and the clink of ceramic cups. Within this subdued sanctuary, Takeda Ryunosuke sat across from Kenta Moriyama, their faces illuminated by the warm glow of a single oil lamp. The room's shadows danced across the wooden beams, mirroring the unrest simmering between the two men. Kenta's broad shoulders were tense, his scarred hands gripping the edge of the low table as his voice rose with an uncommon edge of frustration. "Ryunosuke," he began, eyes burning with resolve, "we cannot afford to hesitate. The more we delay, the deeper the enemy buries their roots. Your caution will be our undoing." Ryunosuke's sharp eyes met Kenta's calm but firm. "And your recklessness might lead us into a trap. We must be certain before we strike. The honor of our fallen clan demands prudence as much as courage." The words hung heavy between them, the clash of their philosophies echoing the greater conflict that defined their fractured world. Kenta's blunt honor, a relic from their youth spent amidst the ruins of their fallen clan, collided with Ryunosuke's measured pragmatism, forged by years of wandering and bitter reflection. Brother Kenta's voice softened, the edge momentarily replaced by a plea. "Our loyalty is forged in blood and battle. But if we do not act, what use is honor to a dead cause?" Ryunosuke leaned back, the weight of his own doubts pressing upon him. "I seek not only to avenge, but to protect what remains. If we sacrifice everything in blind fury, we become no better than those we fight." Outside, the bustle of Edo's nightlife continued obliviously. The laughter of merchants and the distant clatter of footsteps stark against the quiet. Storm brewing within the tea house. Meanwhile, in a modest chamber not far from the city's heart, Aiko Hanami sat by the paper window, her slender fingers tracing the wooden lattice as her eyes fixed on the moonlit streets beyond. The gentle rustle of silk accompanied the soft creak of the sliding door as she settled deeper into her thoughts. Her double life weighed heavily on her soul. As a spy embedded within the city's elite circles, she wielded charm and wit like blades, navigating treacherous social currents with deft precision. Yet beneath the poised exterior lay a woman torn between the perilous demands of espionage and a yearning for peace, a life unshackled from secrets and lies. A faint breeze stirred the paper panels, carrying the distant sounds of the night. The soft cadence of footsteps, the murmur of voices, the occasional bark of a street vendor. Each sound reminded her of the world she risked every day to protect. Her gaze fell to a small, folded note resting on the wooden desk-coded message from Ryunosuke. The ink was fresh, the carefully chosen words a lifeline amid the shadows. She unfolded it slowly, the flicker of candlelight casting long shadows across the delicate calligraphy. "Trust no one beyond this circle," it warned. "Our enemies are closer than we perceive." Isio's heart clenched. The dangers were real and ever-present. The next day, beneath the ephemeral bloom of a cherry blossom tree, Kenta and Ryunosuke met once more. The petals drifted silently to the earth like pale snow, a stark contrast to the tension crackling between the two men. "You hesitate too long," Kenta said, voice low but fierce. "Every moment we wait, the conspirators grow bolder." Ryanosuke's eyes scanned the delicate blossoms, then locked onto Kenta's unwavering gaze. "And if we rush, we risk losing everything, not just our lives, but the very honor we fight to uphold." Kenta's jaw tightened, the unspoken weight of their shared past hanging between them. "I do not question your resolve, Ryanosuke, but we must remember why we fight." "I remember all too well," Ryunosuke replied softly. "Our fallen lord, our clan, there is no victory in rashness." Their brotherhood, tested by years of hardship and loss, strained under the burden of their diverging ideals. Yet beneath the discord lay a foundation of loyalty, unbroken despite the fractures. As night cloaked Edo once again, Aiko met with Ryunosuke in a quiet alcove, shrouded by bamboo groves. The flicker of candlelight revealed the cautious determination etched into their faces as they exchanged a bundle of coded messages. The silence was punctuated only by the rustling of paper and the distant call of a night bird. Each message carried the weight of their hopes and fears, a testament to the dangerous game they played. The risk rose with every step, Aiko whispered, eyes scanning the contents. "But so does the need for our truth to be heard." Ryunosuke nodded, his gaze steely. "We walk a razor's edge, but it is the only path left to us." As they parted, the shadows embraced them, their figures dissolving into the night a brotherhood tested. A spy burdened, and a Ronin resolved to balance honor with survival. The price of loyalty was steep, but in the empire of shadows, it was the coin they had no choice but to pay. The chapter closed with the distant toll of a temple bell, echoing through the restless city, a haunting reminder that in this world, every choice bore consequence, and every bond was forged in fire and shadow. The question lingered in the air: could their fractured unity withstand the coming storm? Or would honor itself be the battleground where they fell? The night was thick with an uneasy stillness as Takeda Ryunosuke made his way through the shadowed corridors of the noble estate. The flickering lanterns cast fragmented light upon the polished wooden floors, their glow barely penetrating the dense atmosphere of whispered secrets and veiled glances. Within this carefully guarded sanctuary of power, Ryunosuke sought an unlikely aliyah, Lady Mitsuko, a noblewoman whose subtle defiance of the shogunate's corruption had become a beacon amid the encroaching darkness. They convened in a private chamber, the air heavy with the scent of incense and the faint rustle of silk. Lady Mitsuko's expression was composed, yet her eyes betrayed a flicker of concern as she regarded the Ronin and his companions, Aiko Hanami and Kenta Mori. "The shogunate teeters," she began softly, her voice barely a murmur, yet commanding attention. Beneath its polished surface, rival factions claw for power, each willing to sacrifice honor for ambition. Ryunosuke listened intently, his sharp eyes fixed on her every word. The noblewoman's insight was a thread weaving through the tangled tapestry of intrigue he had been unraveling. "Lord Matsuda's reach extends further than we imagined," Mitsuko continued. "His supporters infiltrate the court, poisoning alliances with whispered promises and veiled threats." Aiko leaned forward, her gaze steady. "Do we know who among the officials can be trusted?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Lady Mitsuko shook her head subtly. "Trust is a fragile commodity. Some masks hide loyalty, others conceal treachery. We must tread carefully." Outside, the night deepened as cherry blossoms drifted silently through the cool air, their pale petals illuminated by the moon's solemn glow. Ryunosuke and Kenta stepped into the garden, the crunch of gravel beneath their feet, the only sound breaking the silence. "The court's shadows grow longer," Kenta remarked, his voice gruff but resolute. "We are surrounded by enemies who wear the guise of allies." Ryunosuke nodded, the weight of their predicament settling heavily upon him. "Our path is perilous, yet we cannot falter. The samurai code commands us to uphold honor even when the world crumbles." Within a bustling tea house nestled in a quieter district, Aiko moved with practiced grace among masked courtiers, her senses attuned to the subtlest shifts in tone and expression. The clinking of porcelain and the low murmur of conversations provided cover as she extracted whispered rumors, each fragment a vital piece of the growing puzzle. Her heart pounded with cautious vigilance, the knowledge that discovery would mean death sharpening her resolve. Every stolen word brought them closer to understanding the full extent of the conspiracy threatening the shogunate's fragile peace. Later, in a secluded garden, Ryunosuke stood alone beneath the gnarled branches of an ancient pine. The distant toll of a temple bell echoed through the night, marking the passage of time as he contemplated the revelations Lady Mitsuko had shared. The weight of his duty pressed upon him, the burden of honor mingling with the cold reality of political treachery. "Honor is not merely tradition," he whispered to the night, "but a guiding light in the darkest hours." As dawn approached, the shadows of the court held their breath, poised on the edge of upheaval. Ryunosuke's resolve hardened, the knowledge gained a double-edged sword, one that might save the shogunate or doom them all. The game of power had changed, and in its cruel dance, only those who mastered both sword and subtlety would survive. Yet even as alliances shifted like sand, Ryunosuke knew one truth remained steadfast. The path of honor was never easy, but it was the only path he could follow. The night's revelations were but the beginning. Ahead lay tests of loyalty, sacrifice, and cunning that would shape the fate of an empire cloaked in shadows. And Ryunosuke, bound by the samurai code yet free from its chains, would face them head-on, undaunted, unyielding, determined. But in the depths of his heart, a question lingered, whispered by the winds that stirred the fallen petals. In a world where trust was scarce and betrayal common, could honor alone prevail? The answer awaited in the trials yet to come, as the dawn threatened to break the long night of shadows. The air was heavy with anticipation as Takeda Ryunosuke stepped quietly through the narrow alleyways of Edo, the dim light of paper lanterns flickering like ghosts in the humid night. His footsteps were measured, deliberate. Each step carried the weight of memories and unspoken burdens. Tonight, he was to meet former comrades samurai who once fought alongside him, now shadows in the growing conspiracy against the shogunate. The sharp edge of betrayal pressed close, more painful than any blade. Ryunosuke reached a secluded courtyard where the men waited, their armor darkened and faces etched with the hard lines of resolve and bitterness. The silence between them was a chasm filled with fractured loyalty and unanswered questions. His voice, low but steady, broke the tense stillness. "I did not expect to find you on this path." One of the men, a tall figure with a scar crossing his left cheek, stepped forward. "Paths change, Ryunosuke. The old ways serve no one when power is at stake." Ryunosuke's eyes narrowed. The samurai code is not so easily discarded. Honor binds us beyond politics. A bitter laugh escaped the scarred samurai. Honor, what honor remains when our lord was betrayed and we left to rot? Survival demands sacrifice. This confrontation seared through Ryunosuke's heart. He felt the sting of their words as acutely as a wound. The samurai code had been his anchor, but in the face of shifting alliances and political machinations, it now seemed both shield and chain. Later, In the dim confines of a tea-house, Aiko Hanami approached him, her slender frame cloaked in a plain kimono that belied her sharp intelligence. Her whispered words carried the latest intelligence plans and whispers of power plays within the shogunate's elite. "Ryunosuke-san," she said softly, her eyes darting nervously, "the conspiracy runs deeper than we feared. Some allies are not what they seem." He nodded gravely, absorbing the weight of her news. The threads of deceit were tangled and thick, and trust was a fragile commodity. The tension between Ryunosuke and Kenta Moriyama soon erupted within the privacy of Ryunosuke's quarters. Kenta, broad-shouldered and scarred, paced like a caged beast, frustration etched across his face. "We cannot hesitate," Kenta growled. "Your caution will cost us everything. We must act strike before they tighten their grip." Ryunosuke met his friend's gaze, unwavering. "Recklessness will only doom us. The code demands patience as much as courage." Their argument was fierce, a clash of ideals born from shared history but divergent visions. Brotherhood was tested, strained by the harsh demands of their fight. As dawn broke, Ryunosuke found himself alone on a rain-slicked bridge, the cold wind biting at his weathered face. The city awoke slowly beneath a leaden sky, but his thoughts were tangled knots of honor and pragmatism. The rigid samurai code had guided him thus far, but the world now required more a balance between steadfast principle and the ruthless demands of survival. He breathed deeply, the crisp air filling his lungs, resolve hardening within. The crossroads of duty lay before him, and he would walk it with eyes wide open, ready to face whatever shadows awaited.